Hello, everyone. Welcome to the iSphere, episode 22.
22.
We're somehow still doing this.
No, we're doing it. We're growing. We're
Growing. We are growing.
slowly going global.
Unexpectedly.
How's your week been, Joy?
It's been fine. I'm not going to lie, the winter darkness is hitting me hard. I don't know about anybody else, but the sad is hitting. So I've been looking forward to this all week because I get to be in front of all my lights and get a boost.
I was gonna say, like, the one thing that I've been doing like constantly is like I wake up in the morning, I go through to like my office space, I turn on my side lamp, thinking, what you need is that like 30-minute like boost in the morning. It stays on all day. It stays on until about 6 o'clock, and it's like, okay, it can probably start to get a bit darker now. But yeah, it's gloomy, and it's not always the best time of year for sad.
I normally love darkness. I'm a total night owl. I get my best stuff done at night. I've been going to bed at 6 p.m. and I've just been like, nah, I'm not feeling it this year. But it's hard to be. It's difficult. I mean, for a night owl, you'd be like, oh great, I'm up because it's darkness. But this year's just been terrible. I don't know. It's just so dark. I mean, it's dark at like 3 p.m. here now.
Yeah, like I'm the opposite. I quite like getting up in the morning, and like I like that being awake before other people like wake up and start their day. But it's shit when you wake up and it's still night, and you're going, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Worth it.
But yeah, so what are we talking about today? You had a particular topic that you'd like to discuss.
Well, it started out with I wanted to talk about What We Do in the Shadows just because I've been binge watching it.
Nice.
And it's basically just been the revival of vampires on television, but the TV vampire renaissance right now for vampires is just, but make it gay. Because like, I don't know if you've been watching the new Interview with a Vampire. It is explicitly they're in a gay relationship and Anne Rice is churning in her grave. You could harness her right now and you could solve the energy crisis.
Amazing.
I'm here for that. I'm here for all the because that was a large part of vampire lore and history has always been like insecurities over sexuality and also like foreignness. But it's really interesting to see the shift and like people are like, yeah, vampires are LGBT culture now. You don't like it's really interesting and fun for me.
Wasn't there always a kind of like homosexual kind of angle to vampires, like even way back, like Men of the Nights, like that, that kind of thing?
A part of it was a fear over foreigners, so you had a lot of fear over immigrants was to do with vampires, but you did also have the fear of the unnatural. Like a classic one would be the movie Dracula's Daughter. If you've never seen it, it's like an old black and white film. It is fantastic. It's very campy. And it's basically just the Dracula's daughter is on a cure for vampirism, but it's actually a metaphor for being a lesbian. And you have this scene, like if you go through the history of it, if you see like all the stuff that they struggled with production, there was supposed to be like a lesbian kiss in it. And the victim gets stripped and everything, and they're like, no, we can't have that, so we're just going to imply it. And then it was like this whole thing, and you had this poor Dracula's daughter going, I just want to be cured of my vampirism, but it was a whole metaphor for I just want to be straight. But she fails, and she just continues being a lesbian vampire, which I think it was 1930 something it came out, fantastically early. And that has always been there. That undercurrent of otherness and like that kind of not mainstream has always been there. So to me, it's really fascinating that it's come full circle, and now it's just you have like Laszlo and just being sexually ambiguous character that's just
New York City. It's funny that you mentioned Dracula's Daughter because in preparation for the stream I decided to take a little look at Vampire Diaries, and it's like it's kind of like that kind of schlocky like immediate aftermath of Twilight's popularity, like a TV show that turned into that. And it's funny because the video I was watching on it was talking about there's a daughter of like she doesn't have a dad. The dad well, I say she doesn't have a dad. She does have a dad, but the dad isn't like with the mum because he's gay and he left the mum to go and be with his partner. But the dad in it is also a vampire hunter, and he ends up torturing his vampire daughter in a very like weird comparison to like gay conversion therapy.
Yeah,
so you've got the gay dad being like, you weren't born this way, this isn't the way you are, you can change. And it's like, just I was watching the video and I was like, what were the writers doing? Like, why bring this up?
Making choices,
very
and
funny.
Making their opinions known. But yeah, there's been a lot of really interesting fun media that's been kind of like, they're not as afraid to be as diverse, because there are people. I think a lot of people think it's still a like fringe stuff, and you can get away with things when you're on the fringe more than you can for like a lot of things. And it's been my experience as well in like being an indie publisher. There's things that I can publish that I couldn't print in mainstream if I was traditional publishing. So for me, it's just really interesting to see this revival and to just be them just owning it. It's just like, because like the new Vampire Diaries series is hugely popular.
Is there a new one?
Yeah, have you not seen it yet? I've only seen
no. Wait, so there was the immediate after Twilight one, yes. And there's already a reboot of the series.
So no, you're thinking Twilight. I'm talking about Interview with a Vampire with Anne Rice.
Oh no, sorry, you said Vampire Diaries.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Interview with a Vampire. No. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, there's the brand new Interview with the Vampire series that's out just now, and Vampire Diaries. I hope to God never gets rebooted.
I was gonna say it ran for eight. It ran for 8 years, and then it's already getting a reboot. Yikes!
Yeah, but it's to me, it's fascinating the fact that Anne Rice was so vehemently against people finding Lestat gay and sexy, and then you just have the new show that is just gay and sexy the whole time. Like they're literally shading coffins at one point. It's just like, oh, nice.
I'm wondering, right? And like I was trying to put together what's my main what's my main vampire thesis going into this, but I'm thinking, see, without like schlocky, like take the piss out of bad writing-y, like like Twilight's dialogue and Vampire Diaries being like a kind of shambles in regard to like just writing and plot in general. I feel like that onboarded an audience that actually that loves the ideas, likes to take the piss, and I feel like that's kind of maybe the main thrust of like more comedian, like vampire-y type content. Because like what we do in the shadows is fucking excellent. It's so good. I prefer the series over the film though.
So do I.
And I know that's
I didn't
not.
think I would, but I
yeah.
do.
I didn't mind the film, but I don't know. I feel like I'm not a massive fan of Taika Waititi. I don't know. I think he almost plays the same character in every comedy character that he does.
A little bit. Which I mean, I like him as like. So he's brilliant in Our Flag Means Death, where he actually plays someone very different from all of his other stuff.
Yeah, I'm still to watch that. I'm keen to.
Oh, you need to. Oh, we could do a whole episode on Our Flag Means Death. We should absolutely. But the series to me is just like the characters are just so brilliant, and I love Guillermo. I love him so much. He is my son. I will. I mean, I was going to say I'd kill for him, but he doesn't need me to. But like, it's just so well done. Like, especially from like, I normally don't like the fake reality TV stuff. Which the reason I didn't watch What We Do in the Shadows for a long time, because I don't like that sort of thing. But I loved the way it was done for that. It was just
it fits. It fits that perfectly. The kind of mockumentary type thing. I think like it just suits it. I think it's because it's not treating it as so real life. It's not like The Office. you know?
Yeah, The Office makes me cringe. I'm not
Yeah.
a huge fan of The Office because it's the secondhand embarrassment causes me physical pain, so I
Yeah.
often can't get through The Office.
Is that the American Office or the British one?
Both.
Right,
Both.
okay.
The American one I don't find as excruciating, but it could just be because of the UK one. It's just Ricky Gervais, and I fucking hate him. So that could be part of it.
I find like it's weirdly, I feel like the British Office is like way more depressing. Like it's way more depressing because it's like, you know, the shitty like office estate. Like you know, you've seen buildings like that. I feel like the American one kind of like coasted on like the first season of the British Office and then did its own thing, and it becomes a bit more watchable. Still very cringy. It
does more hijinks, and it's not as cringy. And I don't mean cringe as in the way the kids use it. I mean cringe as in I will literally crumple into dust if I'm made to watch any more secondhand embarrassment. I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
I still, even with What We Do in the Shadows, sometimes I have to pause and just brace myself because I'm like, I'm not built for this. I can't handle this.
Yeah.
But it's I do enjoy it. I do think it's one of the better things on TV right now, and I love the characters. I love Nadia. I love Laszlo.
I'm gonna say I fucking love Colin Robinson. I find like it's so good. So it's like all of his lines, all of his delivery, all of the stuff that he does is just top tier. And I love how he can.
You know someone that's like that too.
Oh yeah,
like you know someone. You're like, yeah, you are sucking the life out of the room. But the fact that this character takes such joy in it. It's just like, that's relatable. Actually, that's I can get behind that.
For me, it's all the bits when he does something so like obviously boring, and then he looks at the camera and his eyes light up. It's just it's brilliant. But yeah, I think like I don't know. I find it's almost like refreshing in what it actually is, because you can't compare What We Do in the Shadows to something as basic as The Office is like a mockumentary, because it's way more than that, and it's like obviously it's more fantastical, and also like I quite like how liberal they are with like just killing extras. Like that's always quite good, and like even the cameramen and stuff in it is like it's all.
It solves the problem you get with a lot of long-running shows where they try to bring in new characters to keep things interesting, and then you have this huge cast, and you almost have these jokes where it's like, I mean, it was one I saw about Friends the other day, and it was, didn't Ross have a son? And they're like, yeah, what happened to him? And it was basically, the kid grew up and they didn't want to do it anymore. But they kept making jokes in the show, like, what happened to your son? It's it's kind of implied that Ross is just a deadbeat dad because of that. But it's like What We Do in the Shadows gets around having massive amounts of recurrent characters is just kill them off.
Yeah, because they're all expendable, and even the ones that like when the like the Count, for example, spoilers, but like when the Count kind of returns and hangs around with like the devil dog, like I find all of that's like good and works because it's like, again, it's that fantastical.
Well, they're all undead, story, so there's there's a certain suspension of belief that you can work with it and be like, oh well, yeah, this character came back from the dead. Of course he did. It's a vampire. Like because you can get away with it to some degree, and it also lets them do just insane stuff, like absolutely just like like the werewolves that are like peeing on their lawn and stuff like that because it's they've got a long-standing feud with them, and it just lets them just be completely off the wall, which I kind of like. And and then you have Guillermo, who's a very human, grounding character, who's just kind of Jim looking into the office, in the camera on The Office. He's just he occasionally just
better,
but better, yes.
Yeah,
and, I mean, then he also has his own special skills as well, which really brings it together. So
I like it's one of those things. I like how they aren't like, obviously there's a level of like incompetence that comes to it, and that what's kind of creates the hijinks. Like some of the stuff that Nandor does like deliberately annoys people because it's like so like illogical. But it's not to the point where if you take any of the characters from like The Office, like Michael, for example, from the American one, and it's like they actually become a very fucking annoying character. You don't get that with Nandor because there's like that kind of redeeming aspect to him that, like, he's obviously he's been around for like what fucking 800 years or however long he is. He's the oldest one, isn't he?
I think Nandor is, yeah.
And it's like, you can draw a lot from that. But yeah, like all in all, like it's been renewed for like season 5 and 6, hasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I remember seeing that on. I watch it on Hulu, and I remember seeing there was like a thing flashed up, and I was like, oh, good, more things I can just binge watch whilst I'm hibernating.
Yeah,
but I think it's one of those things where I think if it does, they start to run out of ideas. I think it'll just be, I mean, I'm interested to see where the next season goes. I don't know how far you've gotten with it.
I'm up to date, so I've watched everything. Yeah,
I'm interested to see where Guillermo's storyline goes, because that's been going on since day one. Is for anyone who doesn't know, Guillermo wants to be a vampire, and he's been Nandor's familiar for 10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
And Nandor just keeps brushing him off, like, no, I don't want you to be my familiar, like, you're a human. And then you find out that Guillermo is actually a descendant of Van Helsing, and he's actually really good at killing vampires, but he still wants to be one.
Yeah.
But the end of the season was, the last one was, Guillermo's sick of everyone's shit, just absolutely done, and he goes and finds another vampire and is like, I will give you the shit ton of money.
It's like all of because it's money that he's also been stealing from Nadia's club as the accountant. I think it'll be like, I'm wondering, like, if it's either it will go wrong or like the Van Helsing blood will prevent him. Or, I mean, it would be quite weird if Guillermo ends up becoming a vampire, because you'll lose the grounding character.
You will, and I don't think you could replace him with anybody else, because he's just such a good character for that.
Yeah, because the worry would then be that any new human character that comes in is, oh, you're the new Guillermo, and like, that's quite a lot of pressure to put on someone coming into the series in series 5.
It's also very hard to write that, because you've got, he's such a fantastic actor, and it would be hard to replicate that, I think. And it's just, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep watching it no matter what, because it's vampires, and that's my current drug of choice. if you're new here, you don't know who I am. I write paranormal romance, so. But it was that kind of like, I was watching it and I'm going, oh, I kind of want to see what happens. But then I'm also like kind of slightly, like you say, slightly scared that if they do take him out of his grounding role, what do they replace that with? Because you do need to have that kind of, amongst all the kind of slapstick, you do need the straight man. And I mean straight as in comedy, not whatever. Yeah. But you do need the kind of the practical grounding force to make the humor funny, so the humor has something to bounce off of. And,
I must admit, sorry, you reminded me of that, because like obviously Guillermo entered a relationship for the first time in season 4, and Nandor really really likes his boyfriend. He fancies his boyfriend, so gets the genie to turn his wife into the boyfriend. And does Guillermo not travel to London and then sees his boyfriend and his boyfriend's clone? Oh man, it's
heartbreaking. That's honestly,
I felt really sorry. Yeah,
I did. I mean, I also, for the character of Nandor's wife, she's such a fantastic character, and I don't think they thought the fans would love her as much as they did.
Yeah.
So now there's a bunch of people really pissed that she's just, this whole season she had her agency stripped from her this whole time. It really makes Nandor into a complete dick the whole time, and it's just like, well, yeah, it's kind of, it took the shine off Nandor a little bit, but then you also have, well, he's been alive for so long, like, and he's so used to having like everything pandered to him, like he's just lost his touch with humanity, and he's doing these like kind of like atrocious things. Meanwhile, you've got Naja's high on alcohol blood somewhere, and Laszlo's raising baby Robin Collins, just like, yeah, it was a weird season. It was weird, but it was fun. I
kind of thought it took, by how Colin Robinson was like aging, like some of the stuff was really funny when it came to like teenage Colin Robinson's balls dropping.
Like strokes that he took.
Yeah, and like him not being able to sing like a wee kid anymore was really funny. But I felt it took quite a while to get back up to. I loved the bit when he hammered through in the wall and he started to read all the Colin Robinson diaries, and became
transformed back into his old self.
Yeah, I don't like. I feel like Nadia's character went quite, like, did quite a lot of her own thing this season with like the club management, whereas like Matt Berry's character Laszlo, I don't know where he's really gonna go. Like the good thing is he can probably go anywhere. But like he didn't have the same direction, like in terms of character arc. I thought, unless I'm forgetting something.
His arc was fascinating because the previous seasons he's been very hedonistic and he always does his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one you actually had him doubling down into a paternal role because his friend needed him, which I thought was actually quite a good kind of character development for him. Because he was like, before that he was like Jackie Daytona, and he'd go off and like become a human bartender and coach a basketball team, and like all, like he was probably the most unpredictable character.
Yeah.
And you're the one that would be, if you find a child inside the corpse of your former friend that needs to be raised, you'd probably say he wouldn't be the first one. You'd say, well, Guillermo would be the responsible one that would raise that child. And Guillermo does step up to that plate as well. But Laszlo immediately goes, oh, this is my friend. Oh, okay. And it's a friend that, he's never been shown to be that fond of before, or it's always been kind of begrudging. And it actually shows that he's not as quite as heart on his sleeve as he comes across in the first couple of seasons, and he's actually got like more depth to him. I mean, he's quite loyal, and he will go the extra mile for his friend, and it's not just all hijinks. So I did kind of like that for him. It was a very kind of sentimental thing, and then obviously when Colin says he doesn't remember any of the things that Laszlo did for him, it just breaks his heart.
Yeah, that was really sad. I mean, like the one, I'd say the one scene like pre Colin Robinson does his rebirth was the car where like they dismantle the car, and that was always a good laugh. But yeah, no, I'm really interested to see where they kind of like take it, and I feel like I am wondering if you get like, do you get What We Do in the Shadows without like the slush of like Twilight? Because I feel like I'm not saying that the two are comparable from like a writing or a comedy perspective. I'm just talking about like, so you've got culturally, there was like the great onboarding into mainstream was like Twilight and the other films that I've forgotten.
Every couple of decades, there's a big resurgence in vampire media.
Yeah.
And it's always, the cringiest, worst thing you can think of. But it gets people, and it gets a cult following. Paranormal Romance is one of the biggest sellers.
Yeah.
It has been since forever, since the Victorian era. And it's that kind of, it comes and goes in surges. And Twilight was the major surge for my generation, unfortunately. I had to edit all the erotica that came up after that, and as my job, not just for fun for anyone that's
I was going to say that totally sounds like you put out an open call and you were like, please send me all of your...
That was 2012. That was my entire 2012. The final Twilight movie was coming out, and my life was never the same.
I mean, we can't talk. We're dancing around this here, Joy. We can't not mention crucifix nail nipples here. It was 100% born out of that, whatever the hell that is.
if you're somehow here and you don't know what crucifix nail nipples is, I challenge you to Google it, because the top result is actually my blog, and it will take you to the story. And it was a very, very, very bad vampire erotica, and a lot of people think it was written by a man. It was not. Just going to throw that out there. I know there are entire subreddits dedicated to men writing women badly. This was written by a woman, because I had to talk to her on the phone, and she had very strong views, and it's actually Christian erotica, in case anyone missed it.
Oh.
And Christian erotic is actually a huge subgenre. It's very, very popular. And vampires often feature in it, because it's the taming the beast. Whereas in queer fiction, a lot of the time, you are the beast and you relate to the beast, which is what I think what we do in the Shadows leans into, is that it leans into the monster's relatable. Whereas a lot of previous stuff to do with vampires and all that other stuff was always about taming the monster. Whereas now we are the monsters. It's a very different kind of cultural thing. But yeah,
sorry, I'm reading the quote of it. I'm not going to read the full thing, but her breasts bit into his hands like crucifix nail nipples, tearing at his flesh, but he did not care, because he loved her so, and couldn't stop. Like that, come on.
I can quote it from memory still. There's parts of it that I can still quote from memory, and it's just seared in there, because it was honestly not even the worst plot I've ever done. It was just some of the lines just stay with you, and it's like, what? Like the whole thing about, oh yeah, the hobos living on the fire escape waiting to get into our house. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this? But it was like, it was such a thing. Like vampires were such a big thing in following Twilight, and it was obviously that E.L. James wrote 50 Shades of Grey, based off of Twilight fanfic, and that itself caused a huge. I mean, you can argue that Twilight is responsible for the thriving indie, self-publish market that we have today, because that led to 50 Shades of Grey, which turn caused Amazon Kindle to have a massive boost in people going, I can do that. And it's now one of the biggest publishing sources in the world.
You know what the worst thing about the crucifix nail nipples saga, right, is that I don't think anyone can write that anymore. Like, if no one, like, I almost want to read it in like a fully published like thing. I want to just see it in passing. And like, I'll never see those three words together in the wild, and I feel like you actually prevented that, Joy. So really, you're.
If Twilight gave rise to 50 Shades of Grey, can you imagine what could have happened if something like Crucifix Nail Nipples became mainstream? Can you the timeline we would be living in?
So can I ask?
Bad.
I was going to say, I was going to say, what year was this? Because you might be responsible for Scotland staying in the Union, for Brexit, for Trump. All you had to do was just give Crucifix Nail Nipples the thumbs up. And yet, here we are.
No. Crucifix Nail Nipples was in 2012.
Right, okay.
It was, because it was 2012, because it was the year before I got married. And yeah, that was a very stressful time in my life. But it was also one of, the author was just unhinged. And I don't care if she somehow finds me through Twitter or something and you hear this, you were unhinged to deal with, and you were, because I had to take out a restraining order. But yeah, she was not a fun person, and it was very kind of a lot of the other stuff was it wasn't fantastic, but it also wasn't as weirdly violent, and there was a lot of homophobia in it that I didn't include in the original post because it wasn't funny. There was a lot of things that were very kind of like, this is bad, this is unpublishable. And the thing is, there are people that take their stuff and they do self-publish those things, and they end up with cult followings. I'm not going to name her. There's another author who I've briefly got into a spat with. Her followers tried to take me down, and Tumblr nuked her out of orbit for it. So but people do self-publish these god-awful things, and they do get people reading it because it's easy to read. And that's another thing to recognize about Twilight's popularity. It's easy to read. And not a lot of people know this. The average reading age in America for adults is about 12 years old. 12 to 15 years old is the grasp that most people have for reading literacy in the US and also the UK.
Yeah.
So there's a reason young adult is very popular with adults, because it remains easy to read. I employed similar stylistic choices with Hunger Pangs because I wanted to keep it easy to read for neurodivergent people who often struggle with mainstream publishing. So there's a lot of things that, why do these things take off as cultural phenomena? Usually it's because they're easy to read, and that's it. Crucifix Nail Nipples was not easy to read.
No, it was not.
It was not stylistically, the sentence structure was very difficult. It was somebody who had been brained with a thesaurus and thought they were smarter than everyone else.
Sorry, Joy. You mean a dainty blue bells of bruises around her secret flower is not easy to read? Sorry, I do have it up. It is the most, I've just had one eye on it, and it's,
Mothman trying to give people something to Google there. It is not part of the God Emperor arc. She has never published it because I've looked for it occasionally just to make sure that I'm not about to get found on the internet by this person.
That's very fair.
But it was one of those things that never would have gotten popular. It would have died in the water. And ironically, if I'd never written about it, it would never have become a thing. I've made it more popular than it would have been if it actually got published, and that is my. Maybe that is why we're in the dark timeline. I don't know, but it's interesting. It's interesting to see how it's evolved from then, because you had things like that. Like a lot of the fiction back then that I was editing was vampire centric because Twilight was so popular.
Yeah,
but it was also very dark and grim, and you still see a lot of it. Especially if you're scrolling through Instabook and all these things, and Book Talk as well, you'll have these kind of dark, brooding, loner type people that, the only person they've ever loved is you, and they will kill the world, and you're basically put on a pedestal. And then you have what a lot of indie queer spaces are doing with their media that's more diverse. Not even queer, just more diverse. And it's a lot more hopeful, and it's more comedy slanted.
But I think is the comedy replacing the tired religious angle for a lot of the vampire stuff? Because I'd say one of the things that kind of turned me off to a lot of vampire things was if it's vampire YE kind of romance, was this kind of obsession with purity and stuff like that. And that kind of the Tame and the Beast thing's one side of it, but it's also as we've seen from Crucifix Nail Nipples, it's the I've never said that so many times in a row. But it's, I think, whenever I've seen vampire stuff previously, and you see it when the original Twilight, there is this obsession with Bella and how perfect she is, and how he doesn't want to hurt her.
Turn her because she's perfect.
It's whereas I feel What We Do in the Shadows fucking bends that in its entirety, because there's no weird honorable stance from the vampires for turning people. Why does Nandor not want to turn Guillermo? Because Guillermo's a really good familiar, and that's it. And he's a selfish bastard. Whereas, imagine if I don't think it would even work if Nandor was oh, you're too pure for this, Guillermo.
It wouldn't work because it's just completely. It's not the culture we're in.
Yeah,
it's the culture people are trying to drag us back into. And it's especially over here in the US. There's been a huge shift towards purity values and all sorts of things. You see it especially in fandom spaces as well. There's a huge, people are trying to drag you back towards the purity culture aspect of it. And I'm, for anyone listening who doesn't know, I'm not a fan. And for me, it was when I was doing a lot of, versus the stuff I've seen before in the last decade versus the stuff I see now if I get arcs sent to me or whatever, it is completely different. There is a lot less concern with, pure values, and like you don't get as much of the virgin trope, which was a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's
to be honest,
there will always be a section for it, but it's not as big as it was.
I kind of see that on par with the purity thing. Like they do kind of go quite hand in hand. Like, Bella's pure, Bella's a virgin. Mm-hmm. Like that was like that's very much it. But like one of the things I also kind of see, which I'm not sure if you'll agree with, but like I feel like What We Do in the Shadows is like a really good pushback against you. We've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast, that like article where like everyone on telly is like beautiful but nobody's horny, whereas like literally every single woman I've encountered that has watched What We Do in the Shadows wants to like mount Matt Berry.
Yes,
like because
there's that meme which is the couple that you want to friend you on Tinder, and then there's the couple that actually does.
Yeah.
If Laszlo and Nadja turned up, I'd be absolutely.
Yes. Yep. So it's a massive pushback against that as well, which is kind of good. Like it is when I say pushback, I'm saying it's a pushback against the like everyone's beautiful but nobody's horny.
It's people. They look like real people. They're eccentric because of how they're dressed, but honestly, that's just the cat house on a Saturday night in Glasgow.
Exactly.
For anyone not from Scotland, the Cat House is a major goth club in Glasgow. But it's that kind of it's the weird kids having fun and having a life, and they're actually the weird kids. They're not the weird kids that are pretending to be weird kids. They're not the the kind of especially I saw it a lot in like American sitcoms when I was wee. It was stuff like, I'm the weird kid. And it's like, oh, so you're pretty 2.0, but you've got black hair and piercings, and it's like the people that actually have like not perfect features are never featured. Whereas now you're getting people that have like, the larger noses, the double chin, and they're portrayed as sexy, whereas you never would have had that before. And it's that kind of, it is a nice pushback against that. It is very much these characters absolutely fuck. They literally fuck on screen. Usually in a comical fashion, but they're doing the thing, and they are seen as desirable. And it's that kind of almost like the Morticia and Gomez when they were making the 1993 film. There was a note on the script that said, if they are not allowed to be demonically horny for each other, we're not doing this. And it was like, yes, good. Because it was a very, up until then, even in the 90s, a lot of like romantic portrayals were heavily sanitized. Like even when you had Pretty Women, where Richard Gere's character is literally just paying a sex worker to live with him for a week because she's convenient to have as a date. It was very nitty-gritty stuff, but it was so stylistically beautiful and perfect. It was never, to me, like at least watching it again, it's not sexy. It's just watching two dolls mashed together, and you did not believe the chemistry was there. And then you have something like the stuff we're getting now. It's just, it's a lot more pleasant. And I think when you have the things that push back against that, I will watch like something like, say, the Marvel was a good example, like the Avengers and stuff. There was a lot of people in 2012. I would argue that the appeal of the Avengers in 2012 was, a lot of people just wanted the found family trope. And I never fully understand that I want to bang everyone that came out of that, because I'm going, they're nice, but they're kind of bland.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say no to Chris Evans if he shows up, but like it's still like it's not even about how he looks. It's more about the fact that he seems to be a nice person.
Yeah, I actually think like the appeal of the actors in the Marvel universe has actually gone downhill the more Marvel have churned out, they've churned out films. Like for a good example is actually Thor, and this relates to like the kind of Taika Waititi one, because he came in when there was it Ragnarok? I think it was Ragnarok was like the good one after like two really shit like Thor films. Ragnarok was like the one that like that was the
Great.
big one. But like I've heard that like now that Love and Thunder's came out, it's like I haven't seen Love and Thunder. I know it's on Disney Plus, but like I couldn't bring myself to watch it because I'm fucking exhausted of superhero films.
I'm burned out on them,
and I feel like they're always made to a very specific formula, and they're all very bland. The next superhero film I will watch will be the next animated Spider-Man, and that'll like that's the only one that I'm gonna allow myself to watch because like I'm not interested in any of the other ones. They're all like well and truly gone. And sorry, I think it was Ever Entropy just wrote something that was quite interesting. So I saw that apparently in the new Wakanda film, the kind of the second Black Panther film, apparently they've like they've paid like the special effects team to like remove the bulge from like one of the actors' like costumes. And it is like, did Disney really have to like that's imagine being an actor and having your like, you know, obviously you prepare for a role, whether it's you're getting ripped or you have to like, you know, whatever they want, but then like special effects just like, oh sorry, you're showing too much penis, no penis allowed. but that's
also bad costuming. They're not putting money into costuming like they used to, and they're relying on CGI for everything, whereas good costuming would actually hide that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That bugs the hell out of me. I have a friend that does she works for the Royal Ballet in London. A lot of the male ballet dancers have to be appropriately attired.
Yeah.
But you still see things because they're wearing tights. You know? And it's like, but nobody gets up in arms over that. It's not an issue. But Disney's like, no, we don't want no penis, none at all. And it's like they've almost done a complete like reversal from like all the animators that used to sneak the rat. Like there's so many dicks in the castle from Little Mermaid. It almost feels as if they're just trying to wipe the slate clean. And I wouldn't put it past them to try and do that. Like just sanitize everything they're doing to the point of complete sexlessness.
I think it's funny because I feel like there's films. I feel like obviously there's like AAA games. I feel like the kind of AAA like Disney films, like for example, another good one is they did the same like special effects on the new Jurassic Parks, because Bryce is it Bryce Dallas Howard?
I think so. Yeah,
she's got a bit of an arse. And apparently, for like the posters for the film, they trimmed her arse down. They literally they made it flat so she could stand and look out a window at like, and it's like, come on, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do that?
So
give us arse.
This is a thing. This is I wish my editor was on because she could talk about this for hours. But Puritans were not as puritanical as we think they are. So people talking about, it's puritanical. Puritans were actually quite freaky. They had certain views, but there was a lot of things that we looked at were the extremism of it. So we're looking at this and going, oh well, we're going back to puritanical times. Puritans still fucked. They still had asses. They had cod pieces. Like we knew that people had body parts. Why are these things being so hypersexualized that they're being CGI'd out instead of just being like, yeah, some people have anatomy? Like, what does that achieve? Other than to make people afraid of bodies that more so than they already are. It annoys the living hell out of me. We're trying to get a body neutrality movement going. And that includes just being like, yeah, some people's bodies have got lumps and bumps. That's it.
Yeah.
It bugs the shit out of me. Sorry.
Is it no? That's absolutely fine. I mean, I think like it is strange because like it's something that we wouldn't even talk about on stream if they weren't like going into underpaid special effects people and saying, "Can you trim off this?" It's like honestly, nobody's going to comment if there was a guy with a little bit of bulge in his fucking costume. Who cares?
Horny people, some extremely horny people might.
But horny people are going to do that anyway, though. And horny people are going to get more upset that it's been edited than Puritans who would point out that, oh, this isn't appropriate for a child's film. That the problem.
Also, if you are so against those things, why are you looking? Like, that's the thing that gets me. Like, if you're the one being inappropriate, you're the one staring.
Yeah.
Just accept it. It's a body part and move on. That's it. If you're the one that has to be like, oh, that if you are focused so much on that, you're the person with the problem.
It's weird though, because I'm like back in the day, like I wouldn't say I was like the horniest child. I was probably up there, but like I wouldn't. It's not something. There's a particular horny mindset that you've got to be in to spot all of these things and then say, oh, but what about the children? Because lots of children won't even fucking notice that. They're too busy watching the cool fight scene,
Yeah, they're watching the sparkly things on screen. They're watching the explosions.
And it does seem weird to get like pre-offended on behalf of the children.
Well, I mean, most arguments about Think of the Children are not about the children. It's about controlling the narrative and your ideas of acceptability. And it's a huge
stares at every political thing happening at the moment.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's it's always whenever someone I had I do the promo posts for my stuff.
Yeah.
And I get people you can tell that Twitter is now on Tumblr because I get people going on to old posts of mine that aren't really that horny and being like, this is inappropriate, this should be behind a filter. And it's like, where did you come from?
Get a fucking spray bottle out.
But I'm like, in retaliation for that, I'm just posting the horniest extracts. That's I've got them all queued up. I'm just like, no. Like you do not, it's not, the stuff I'm posting is not sexually explicit. You do not get to come at me and say this is inappropriate.
I think
because it implies sex. Sex happens. Yeah. It also doesn't happen. It's not a big deal.
So I liked one of your posts earlier where you were talking about the this wave of Twitter and TikTok people coming onto Tumblr and censoring all of the words. I find that that is that to me is just hilarious.
It is not helpful.
Like even people that are using different terms, like I'm sorry, but unaliving is just, don't use that. It that's not going to be caught by anyone, really. It's something that was born out of people's fear on TikTok that they would get moderated if they said kill in a video. They thought that there's someone in the algorithm that goes and says, oh, anyone that gets killed is getting suppressed. There's a post, and that is it. Yeah, it doesn't happen. It's not how algorithms work.
It's not.
It's
also not how Tumblr works, because Tumblr actually lets you filter for your own safety, which has been really. We started off at the start, and I was like, yeah, my mental health's not doing great right now. Part of that has been people coming into my inbox and talking about really sensitive subjects, and instead of using the words like suicide, rape, other things, they're using leet speak, which is what it is. It's leet speak. They're filtering the words out so that my filter doesn't catch it, and I get exposed to a shit ton of stuff that I am not in a place to handle. I'm like, I have those filters in place for a reason. You getting around that is not acceptable, because it just means you don't actually care about other people. You're worried about filtering the word does not stop the word from being triggering. Or censoring the word, does not stop the word from being triggering. I still know what you're talking about. I don't want to be reading the thing. That's why I have the filter in place.
Yeah.
Because I'm not headspace for that. But you have people be like, oh, I'm just trying to be polite. And it's like, it's not polite.
You're being an arsehole. Yeah.
It's, I understand if you are coming from a new platform where this is all you know, but you are on Tumblr, you can say words. You can say them. And we encourage that. It's the same with AO3 tagging. I was reading a Witcher fic this week, and somebody wrote the word dead as D-E-A-D, dead. And I was like, this is The Witcher. Like, canon violence is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, and also it's AO3. You don't have to censor it this way, but it's what they're used to. They're used to being like, they get their account suspended, or the people on Twitter. I have people being like, "How can you just write about all this?" And I'm like, "Because I'm on Tumblr, and Tumblr doesn't give a shit."
Yeah.
Like, and
I find like that whole thing purely stems from a social media environment where people are scared of being like suppressed for whatever, and to, like, it's kind of been proven that like a lot of algorithms actually take context into it. Like, it's one thing to post a TikTok of dead bodies, for example, versus talking about, oh, I'm not home on time. I'm so dead when I get home. Like, people take all that into actual context. One thing I have seen on Tumblr, which has been really fucking annoying, is, and I'm not sure if it's I'm sure it's a Twitter user coming to Tumblr and thinking that like accounts, like sort of semi-big accounts, are really dumb, because I've been getting a ton of asks that are like so clearly designed to like speak to my following as opposed to me, and like they want to essentially use my blog as a platform. And I think for quite, like, obviously I don't mind slapping down some on occasion if they're being particularly dumb, but when they start to post like 6 links in their ask, there's no fucking way I'm posting that. One, because asks with links in them tend to be really fucking annoying anyway, but like, 2, I'm not espousing 6 shitty, sketchy links into the ether. So, and exposing all the people who like follow the likes of you and me don't want exposed to any of that shit,
Yeah. It's actually a thing that I've noticed with donation posts. They have I only reblog donation posts from people that I'm friends with. That is my rule, because you can't check to see if everybody is a scam. Like, I get 20 to 50 of them a day requests.
Yeah.
And they're actually, some people will approach you and say, "Hey, I saw you reblog this thing. Please don't tag it as mutual aid, because people filter for that and then people don't see it." And I'm going, if people are filtering it, it's because it's triggering, or they just don't want to see it. I'm not going to inflict that on something. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, censor something to get around someone's boundaries. Those boundaries are in place for a reason. Whether you think they're valid or not, they're still there. And I'm not going to ignore them. Yep. And it was like, oh, well, you're causing damage because these people aren't getting the full help they could be getting.
No, it's not how that works.
That's not how that works.
Absolutely not how that works.
It's been one of those that I really doubled down on. I'm literally only reblogging from 3 friends right now, because I'm not doing like I feel bad, because there were times when when I was extremely ill, we had to do stuff so I could get an MRI done. And I got a lot of help from the community, and that was wonderful. But I got help because people knew who I was, because I contribute to the Tumblr ecosystem. And it's, I'm obviously not a scam account.
As you say, you're the Bibliosphere professional Tumblr cultivator, curator. You curate the Tumblr experience for them.
I saw someone the other day referred to me as one of the load-bearing posters of Tumblr, and I was like, that's actually pretty funny.
Crucifix nail nipples is actually like the one post that's propping up half of Tumblr.
But it's just that you have these new people coming in, and they want you to do the stuff that you did on Twitter, and I'm like, no, Twitter was a trash fire. For different reasons than Tumblr is a trash fire.
No, sorry, I'm putting my foot down as well. We can't talk about Twitter today.
No, we're not.
We can't. It's one of the rules. I'm sick of it. Back to vampires.
Back to vampires.
I'm wondering, what's the next what's the next vampire thing? What's the next evolution? I see Hunger Pangs animated series hitting Netflix.
I would love that beyond anything. That is one of the... When I'm sad and I can't write, I tell myself, imagine what this will be like when it's a Netflix animated special. And that actually motivates me slightly, even though I know it will never happen.
Yeah, it could. Not with that fucking attitude. I'm serious. I would be amazing. It would be incredible. How many episodes would it be for like book one? How many episodes would you want it? Would you want it to be 20-minute cuts, or would you want it to be like hour-long episodes?
I honestly don't know. I feel like sometimes an hour is too long for things. I'm not sure. I just saw Waffle Frod's comment. Hunger Pangs gets rewritten into a straight OTP. Absolutely not.
I think you would have to have creative decision. Creative control.
And be like, I am on the floor with this one. I am on the ground. You do not get to do that. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's I think you could do it in 40 minutes probably.
That would be cool.
And then I'm just sorry. As a mod, I'm seeing some of the stuff that's getting filtered out there from someone's comment. But it was it flashed up on my screen. It was very distracting. I think if it ever was animated, I would probably be 40-minute episodes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, and because I know the audiobook, most of the chapters are 20 minutes long. But that might be because you literally, if you were doing it that way, if you're doing 20 minutes at a time, you'd probably only get you'd end up with like 40 episodes for season 1, which is not a bad thing.
Hey, it's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
It would be amazing. It would be, and it would work so well animated. It would work.
It would. I don't think people ask me for my fan cast, and I'm like, I don't think it would work with real. Like I've done it. I've made a fan cast, but I don't think it would work with real people. I think you would have to have it animated just to do the kind of the stuff that's in there. I don't think Demon Rose would work with CGI. So it's I would love that. And my illustrator is a professional comics person, and we've occasionally toyed with the idea of doing a graphic novel.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Which could be a good jumping board for that, but there's nothing confirmed for that because they are also very busy working for DC at the minute. So not many people can say that. Not many romance authors can be like, yeah, my cover illustrator works for DC. But it's what are you watching? What are you whying to, Waffle Fraud?
I think it's the comment about the beavers, as in
the beavers.
There's apparently a post somewhere slut shaming beavers for having multiple sexual partners.
I mean, there's post slut shaming everything. There's post slut shaming Alexander Hamilton, for God's sakes, which I've just seen pop up in the chat as well.
I'm waiting on one slut shaming me. Just someone takes a still from my stream or something like that and just emblazons the word.
It's just your Udi one with the feet
out. Yeah, it's the non-blurred feet post available for Ko-fi and donators only.
Although, just throwing that out for anyone that's listening, Ko-fi has a very strict not safe for work policy, and if you were caught doing any of those things, your account will be terminated. So
thank you for the heads up, Jack.
Just a heads up there. You can do Patreon because that's another thing that's annoying me this week. Patreon keeps flagging my account as adult on Patreon, even though I only post links to my Discord and occasional behind the scenes book stuff. And it's like, cool, I'm literally doing nothing that would warrant you putting a temporary freeze on my funds, but never mind.
Is it because they're just flagging anything vaguely LGBT as being not safe for work?
Probably.
Yep, that would make sense.
Also, there was a while ago I had TERFs were falsely reporting all my accounts trying to cut off my income, so that was fun.
Lovely people.
It happened with Amazon. Amazon had to review Fangs, and they found it was within their terms of service, so that was nice. But there is a major pushback for to make LGBT stuff more explicit, and that already happens. That already exists.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting, that things that are more mainstream, like What We Do in the Shadows, can get away with it more.
Yeah,
and it's nice to see that. I mean, I fully love the fact that you have Laszlo, who's set up to be a very womanizing character, who's doesn't really give a shit about gender.
I do kind of love the just I'll fuck anyone, it's I think that's a good way to approach a character like that. Whereas like not focused on the womanizing aspect, but just what do you call it when it's not a woman, just a
slut. Slut positivity in the chat tonight. But
he's just a shagger, you know, like he just goes around.
I mean, it's kind of like Joey Beatty's character Jaskier in the Witcher Netflix. Jaskier is a notorious womanizer in the games and the books. Yeah. And then you have Joey Beatty, who's chosen to play it as sexually ambiguous as possible, which is good for him.
Yeah.
And and he's getting like blinkers put on him by the writers that are going, no, he's whatever, and it's like, no, he's not. And it's just kind of, it's interesting to see how some of the actors are trying to, like, it was a whole thing with Star Wars. You had what's his face, Oscar Isaac and John Boyega were trying to be like, Finpo, and you can see that
Disney was like, no, absolutely not. That's banned. Yeah. There's no gay people in space.
There's no gay people in space. Apart from that, they're like, oh yeah, Star Wars first kiss, and it's like 20 seconds of like you can't even see them.
Oh yeah,
but it was.
Don't get me started on the Disney Star Wars. I fucking hate. Although I have heard that Andor is amazing. Like
I've heard that as well.
I've heard it's the best Star Wars thing ever. Like
I quite like The Mandalorian.
I've enjoyed The Mandalorian.
I haven't seen Andor yet. I don't have Disney Plus at the minute. But it's kind of, the fact that they're putting these diverse things into the fringe stuff and not the big films.
Yeah.
And the fringe stuff is doing better. And it's just like, they're trying to stick to the formula that they know works, but the formula is no longer relevant.
Yeah.
So it's it's very kind of interesting that they're trying to stick to the tried and true. And it's just not working as well as they wanted to. But then also they're not sticking to the tried and true because they're not fucking writing things out in advance anymore. So it's
they're going for like peak broad brush appeasement for as many people as possible, and it's why nothing's critically acclaimed.
Yes,
they're filming things to not catch the ire of like bigots who would kick up a fuss.
But you can't do that. You cannot make good art doing that. And the thing about Star Wars is it was in the 70s, it was a very silly, they didn't think it would amount to anything. But it became one of the cornerstones of modern media. Yeah. Because it was artistic, because it was brilliant, because they, you had, it made a statement. Whereas now the current ones are, well, sometimes maybe the Nazis are okay. It's just like, no. Absolutely the fuck not.
Well, isn't that the case of the like Disney's Star Wars attractions, like as in at the parks? Like they've got the galaxy,
it's all
like
the First Order stuff.
But like they've got like the Star Wars hotel, and apparently one of the activities that they get all the kids to do is like report Chewbacca to the fucking First Order authorities or something like that. I'm sure I read that somewhere and I was like, surely fucking not. But
they're training them to be snitches, and it's just like absolutely not. But that was in The Sims as well. The Sims, you can choose to be either you can choose either side in The Sims, but it's more fun to be the bad side. It was Journey to Jakku, I think it was, that The Sims did, and you can play as a Jedi, or it was not good. Was
it an expansion pack for The Sims?
An expansion pack, yeah.
Oh right, what the fuck?
I will say the textures and the household stuff, fantastic. The world, garbage. But it was like, you could either be a Jedi or you could do First Order, and the First Order stuff was more fun. I think because it is more fun sometimes to do naughty things. But it's like, is it
not be a fucking Nazi?
I know, exactly, and it's like, but it was more things like, oh, go and do this, go and do that. Whereas the good one, working for the Jedi side was like very kind of like,
yeah. I mean, I feel like this the first. So this is the first Star Wars Battlefront 2. when the campaign of like the Rise of Empire, where you were playing the clones, and then like halfway through the campaign, you transitioned into the stormtroopers gunning down all the rebels. It very much took you on that journey of like, oh, we're the bad, are we the baddies?
Yeah, but it also is Keita. Is that how you say that name?
You what?
Keita. In the chat,
Keita.
It's really kind of sketched that Jedi Sith choice was always in the feature in the Star Wars games. It wasn't.
Yeah.
So a lot of the early Star Wars games, you made a moral choice, and if you did the bad thing, you got the bad ending, and it made the game harder. So it was a lot of the time it encouraged you to pick the light side. Like I think the first one, because a lot of them before the Kyle Katarn ones, there wasn't a lot of choose a side. It was always be on the rebel side, fight the Empire.
Even the Knights of the Old Republic one, where you did get the option to straight up be the Sith, like you had to like kill like half your teammates in order to do that ending. It was the bad ending.
It was, yeah. And it's annoying because the fandom is so much better. Like the stuff that the fandom puts out it's so much more nuanced. And you're going, well, yeah, because they can afford to take the risk. And, if bigots find it, then you just block them. Disney can't block bigots from ranting about it. I mean, they probably could actually, if you think about the amount of wealth they have and the reach they have.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of there's no nuance in any of it anymore. There's no statements. Like I actually saw someone call Casablanca problematic because so it was Casablanca. It was, well, he's broken the law too, so he's helping them, so that is questionable. And it's like they're literally breaking the law because they're fighting against Nazis. You cannot turn around and say the other person has also broken the law, therefore they are bad. That's not how this works. But I don't see Casablanca wouldn't get made anymore.
No.
Because it would upset people. Good. Some people deserve to be upset. Some people deserve to be made to think about their life choices and to make a better choice.
Yeah, I'll never buy they're as bad as each other thing.
No,
and that's a very like the centrist type side. But yeah, so I'm just I've remembered something about the Star Wars hotel that I thought was also quite funny. So it was set up as like a wholly like immersive kind of like experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would go in, you would sleep in your like a wee pod, but like the rooms didn't have windows. You were supposed to be on like a spaceship, and like there was like TV windows. There's like no fucking light getting into the room at all.
How to give people the worst depression.
And apparently all the food was like shite as well. Like you just end up being trapped in this weird box where you've got to role play as a mini Nazi snitch for like fucking 2 days or something.
The thing is, see, when I was younger, I would have committed arson to have a Star Wars hotel experience. Like,
fuck yeah.
I would have killed to have that when I was a kid.
Definitely.
And they've just made it bad. And I'm so angry about it. I'm so furious for all these kids that are growing up. And they could have had, we're going to go to Mos Eisley Cantina for like our holidays. And it's just like a desert beach resort area. And you get to walk around and it's space themed.
Yeah.
Absolutely would have been cracking. Would have loved that.
Sign me up.
No, you get to go live in a box where everything is screens. And the First Order's there asking for your papers. Thank you.
So another thing that was quite funny, and again I've been on a YouTube binge, but I was hearing about it, but like the Star Wars, they call it Galaxy Edge, is like the part of the park that's all Star Wars themed, but it all takes place in like one outpost. So like it's got the it's got the First Order and it's got the Rebels, and both of them have a presence in this one outpost, and they're kind of like moving around and trying to like outdo each other. But like you can have like one of the things that it was talking about was how like Rey, the character, like the Disney character creator who's dressed up as Rey, like couldn't just do photo ops because like because every so often there'd be like a stormtrooper patrol, and it was like they were trying to make it an immersive experience, so they couldn't have her there and get tons of pictures taken. So instead, what they told the character actor to do was to like take kids and like run around and like hide behind bins and stuff and like pretend that they're spying on the First Order, which is a good workaround, but it's quite funny that you've got like the First Order and you've got like fucking Kylo Ren coming out and doing like Gangnam Style and shit like that. It's all bad. Take the kids to see Max Rebo and the Jizz Whalers. That I know that the music is called Jizz, isn't it? It's called Jizz, yeah. But are they called the Jizz Whalers? That's been made up. I refuse to believe that they're called the Jizz Whalers. That's banned. I want to touch on something that was mentioned earlier, which is The Witcher. What did you think of The Witcher news and Henry Cavill leaving?
I think it's a shame that there's no Witcher season 4. There is no
or 3.
I mean, he's still in it for season 3, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. But like, I mean, what state is season 3 in that he's went? I'm no fucking staying for another one. I mean, I didn't think much of season 2. I thought season 2's first episode was okay, but there really wasn't that much to
season 2. I was there for Jaskier and Yennefer.
Yeah,
they were fantastic. That one scene where they're rescuing each other, they gave that to the Jenskier shippers. That was wonderful. But other than that, I was kind of like just not that intrigued with it. I was like, oh, this is kind of boring.
Yeah,
and I think obviously there's some talks about money and stuff because Henry Cavill left to do Superman supposedly, but it's like that man loved The Witcher.
Yeah, he was all about The Witcher.
His life's dream, and he walked away to do Superman, which he has said he's kind of ambivalent about. And I'm like, oh, they fucked up.
Yeah, something's went wrong.
It's the same problem that they had with Game of Thrones. The writers fucking hate fantasy.
Yeah,
they keep trying to be like, oh well, no, we don't really like the source material. If you don't like it, don't
fuck off.
No, fuck off. Let people that actually are passionate about it do it.
Yeah,
because they had such good characters. Like all the actors are fantastic. There is not a flaw with any of the actors. They are all fantastic. They all bring wonderful energy, and the writers are sitting there going, don't really like magic, and it's just like, why are you writing for a fantasy series? I'll kill you. Like, why are you doing this?
I really don't understand when you have an actor that's so unbelievably passionate about the source material that he is giving the writers daily advice on to how to make the character better.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the problems in season 2 with The Witcher was Henry Cavill and Geralt became way more of an action man. Whereas I think Henry Cavill was always trying to reel the character back into being more of a thoughtful Witcher that actually, he's a bit of a philosopher. He's a bit of he's got a broader kind of appeal, and I feel like they knew that there's obviously a certain bunch of people who played the games and think he is an action man, but I think I don't know. It's a weird.
Even the game have him being more of a father to Ciri. Even in the games, you have the background where you have Yennefer and Geralt very much co-parenting Ciri.
Yeah.
And they've just destroyed that. And they want you to have the same attachment. And you're not going to have the same attachment because they've not put the groundwork in. Because it's not as fun as
I'm also thinking they killed off a Witcher.
They killed off Lambert?
Which doesn't happen in the book.
Or the game. Lambert's a fan favourite. Everyone loves fucking Lambert, and they just killed him off because they didn't know what to do with him. And it's tell me you don't know what you're doing.
Which was so weird, because there was an animated Witcher show about Vesemir that came out. It was either a short animated film or it was like a wee mini-series. I can't remember which one, but it was...
The Nightmare of the Wolf or something.
Yeah,
called, I think.
it was fucking really good. It was really good. And, like, I don't understand how...
It wasn't... So it wasn't on par with a lot of the stuff that people like about The Witcher. It was very much a Netflix animated special.
But, I mean, I think, like, the nice thing when you've got that blend of, like, live action and... like an animated like prequel almost is I can suspend my disbelief that maybe it's not exactly how like it's not going to exactly marry up with the series, but it's more like a kind of like tale. I feel like it's why everyone says that House of Dragon's amazing, the kind of the prequel to Game of Thrones. I can't. Like what why would I watch a prequel for something that I know turns up shit. Like what? Why? Like why would I ever want that? And then there's supposed to be another one of the aftermath with Jon Snow cutting about up north. It's like why? Kit Harington is struggling to find another role and has just been planted as fucking Jon Snow.
It's really disappointing, and again, it stems from writers writing things that they hate. It was very, very obvious that as soon as they ran out of source material for Game of Thrones, it was, oh well, we don't kind of really like the dragons. We're just gonna
kill them all off.
You know, like it's more about the sex and the violence, and it's like, but dragons. But magic, but like all the fun, intriguing stuff is just out the window, and all of a sudden it was just a complete shit show. But it's literally, it was, you know, we see it in a lot of things. Like there's a lot of the good, lasting classics, like fantasy and sci-fi classics, were written by huge nerds who love the franchise and who love, you know, the genres and everything,
and who love all the wee things. Yeah, and like it's the attention to detail given to things that a lot of other people would just gloss over. I like moving it into the sci-fi realm. I watched the first episode of the Halo series yesterday or the day before.
Oh, really?
And I cannot wrap my head around some of the choices that is made when there are like contemporary comparisons that show that what they were afraid to do was actually fine. Like I think like all the characters are like fine, but there's like one of the problems and like one of the things that's probably been it's been a massive part of my life. I've played Halo since I was like 5 years old. You know, sitting doing couch co-op with my dad. Like that was how I played Halo on the first Xbox.
So like Mothman's having a revelation behind me, like there's a Halo series.
Yeah.
He's excited now.
It's the reason why you've not heard about it is because it was on Paramount Plus, which was like the latest thing to appear, the latest streaming platform. But like, you know, watching it, like, you know, it starts off that there's like a bunch of rebels that don't like the UNSC, which is like the kind of global united, very kind of militaristic human kind of colony. These rebels are people who want their independence from the UNSC, and like it's a really good way to introduce the Spartans, who like Master Chief is, and like because they're talking about them as like it's all military propaganda, it's all a threat, like, you know, these super soldiers are there to put us down, and it's a good way to introduce them from like a narrative perspective. It gives a new spin on it that maybe people who haven't played the games wouldn't be that familiar with seeing them that way. It does go into a wee bit more detail on the books, but the Master Chief, the main character, has since the beginning of fucking time been a self-insert character. He never takes his helmet off. And when you have seen his helmet taken off in games, it's always been like, you know, you just see the eyes, or like, you know, the camera cuts away. And for some reason, in the very first episode, he takes his helmet off. And you see the actor underneath, and he spends the majority of the time for the rest of the series with the helmet off. And you've got the Mandalorian there, which is like textbook, like you can actually have a protagonist that doesn't show his face. it's
and it works,
and it works. It works really well. Like, because you can do things like focus on minor body language like quirks, and you can show like great great emphasis in relationship to all the other characters. So I was a bit let down by it. Also, like one of the funniest things that I learned, and this is just something that I've picked up by like just reading the internet. I didn't go looking for spoilers, but in it, the Master Chief fucks. He fucks, which like a big part of his character is that he's essentially chemically castrated because he had to go through this like super soldier indoctrination program. But like he fucks, he's straight up. He not only does he fuck, but he also fucks like a kind of human that is like sided with the aliens, which doesn't exist. But yeah, it's why.
It just shows you it's being written by people that don't understand the source material at all,
but like
what people like about it.
There's small tweaks that you could like easily make to like not do that. As in, I'm not saying that the entire premise of the show is like unfounded. I think you could probably still do quite a good like spin-off story, but like why take something that's so obviously like rooted in canon for like the existing, like, because when you're creating a show out of a video game, you want existing fans to be able to jump right in. Like, surely you would think about them before you think about the wider audience, right?
I mean, you would think so. You would absolutely think so, but that's often not how it works, because you're told, speaking from being inside the industry, you were told to aim for the broadest strokes possible, because you can't rely on cult. But the thing is, with these franchises, you usually can rely on cult following.
But exactly. So I
don't understand why you don't pander to the cult.
Sorry, we're jumping between multiple TV shows, but like this is tangents within tangents. But like I don't know how the Witcher series survives the jump to one of the Hemsworth brothers. Like what's the in-universe explanation for Geralt having a completely different fucking face?
Yennefer fucks up a spell.
Oh, no.
With a different face, and you just have Joey Beatty as Jaskier. Just have Jaskier for the rest of the season being like, what's wrong with your face? Like, why do you look different? Or going like, this isn't him. This is like, I like the fan stuff that's been going over my dash, where it's no explanation, no one notices except Jaskier. Like that would be the only way to salvage it in my mind, that you have the character who routinely breaks fourth wall because he is also the storyteller.
It would. The problem is, as we've already said, like, I mean, I'm gonna struggle to watch season 3 of The Witcher, let alone beyond Henry Cavill leaving, because he brought he very much is Geralt. Like he's brought so much to that character in a really surprising way. Because I was a wee bit worried when I first heard that, like, because I'd only ever seen him in Superman, and I hate Superman.
I don't like the Superman.
I like the Man of Steel and Superman, Batman versus Superman, and
because they also fundamentally don't understand Batman or Superman.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I could run it forever because I'm a DC girl. I grew up with DC, and none of them understand. There hasn't been a good Batman since the Batman animated series. I'm gonna die on this hill. People can bury me under it if they want to. I will die on this hill. It's very, again, people that are writing things like the issue I had with the Man of Steel. Superman never kills anyone.
Oh yeah, and Zod is just like fucking
snaps Zod's neck or whatever, and you're like,
yeah.
Tell me you don't understand Superman without telling me you don't understand. Oh, but it's got to be gritty and dark to get people interested. No, it doesn't. You can have Thor is currently a better Superman than Superman.
Yeah, and to be honest, like on top of that, one of the things I really didn't like about Man of Steel was the how they killed off the dad. I thought that was probably the worst way to kill off the dad, because does he not like? I mean, Adam, I think, have we spoken about this? I'm sure we have. But like Smallville, when the dad dies in Smallville, it's like a heart attack or something, And it's like,
it's canon through all the comics, through all the other movies with Christopher Reeves and everything else. He has a heart attack.
Yeah, whereas like, no, don't save me from this tornado, son. you stay where you are. I was like, come on to fuck. He could have just whipped round and got you, like, or he could have whipped round and grabbed you and taken you fucking 600 miles in the other direction. Like, why? I don't make it make sense.
We have to give him worse trauma, and it's like your father figure dying from a heart attack is traumatic enough. You don't have to make this worse. There is no reason to keep escalating things, and that's what they do. They've gotten to the point where they want the most outrage from things because they've learned that outrage is as profitable as enjoyment, and that's a problem. It's very kind of when I get feedback, there was a thing I got feedback from something back when I was doing the first draft. It was, oh, you could probably do this, and Nathan's character could probably be sadder to make him more relatable. And I was like, Nathan's sad enough. I'm not doing that.
Yes, that's not happening.
I'm not. I do not. This story is not about the suffering. It's about finding recovery and joy and love and like. But all the advice I was getting, mostly from entirely able-bodied people that were beta reading for me, was, I mean, he's just not suffering enough. I'm like, are we reading the same thing? And it was very kind of like, it's the same thing you see in like modern media. If they're not constantly one-upping each other with the tragedy, it's very it's like, oh, we're not doing enough to make them suffer, to make the redemption worth it. You don't need to suffer more to have a better life. And I really hate the idea that, I'm only missing 2 limbs. Imagine like it could be so much worse. Like, and you're like, that doesn't need to be a thing.
Yeah, it's like the people who live off of like the peaks and troughs. Yeah. Like, no. Like, one of the things I enjoyed the most about Hunger Pangs was the way in which like Nathan was treated by the Doctor. I thought that was like the kind of most like the most like eye-opening, like this is how it should always be type thing, because like
that was my complete, people were like, oh, it's a fantasy gas lamp romance novel, and I'm going, the real fantasy is Dr. Allen, because it's the medical doctor that has absolute compassion.
Like the doctor that you actually want. Yeah. But like,
he's an amalgamation of the few good doctors that actually helped me, and I just put him into one character as a love letter to doctors that managed to hold on to their compassion. So
yeah, I mean, like, I liked how, and like, I'm not saying that you would ever dabble in this, but I'm saying maybe a lesser author would have jumped in for like the miracle cure on Nathan. I
mean, and that was like, also Fangs was also directly written to challenge that, because in a lot of even supernatural paranormal stuff, there's always the character has tragic thing happen, magical cure happens and fixes them, and sometimes that can be a very real form of wish fulfillment for disabled people, that you do want the magical cure. I mean, there are absolutely parts of me that if someone was like, I can wave a magic wand and I can take away your inability to eat gluten, I would be like, who do I kill? Who do I to get back? Who do I murder? But it was, but there's also this kind of, you can tell when it's written by someone with that experience versus someone who just thinks my existence is punishment.
Yeah.
And I don't like that at all. Like, it's very obvious to me when you have, the idea that being disabled is the punishment of the narrative, and the resolution is having that punishment resolved. It's one thing to wish fulfill, to have your own magic wand to fix things. It's another to be told your existence is unfeasible and also, so undesirable that people will commit atrocities to avoid it. It's like, no. So that was for Nathan's arc is very much definitely rooted in achievable recovery, let's say. Because for a lot of people, you can get better, things can improve, but it's, largely dependent on having a support group and people that are compassionate and understanding, and also competent care. And it bugs me that that's not more of a thing. And that there's not a lot of romance writers that actually do deal with it. I have been seeing some of them, and I feel terrible now because I can't remember her name, but she writes romances where most of the characters have what we would classify as invisible disabilities, and one of the characters literally just has IBS, and it got panned because, oh well, who wants to be in love with someone who has that? It's like 90% of the population will in their life at some point experience gastrointestinal distress. If you can't handle that, like, leave people alone. But it's very kind of it's weird to see the things that people are like, this doesn't belong in fantasy, and then you have other people going, this absolutely belongs in fantasy because I don't deserve to be left out of the narrative.
Yeah.
So, but it's a thing with a lot of mainstream stuff. There's no inclusion. Like, any sort of inclusion is for the sake of here's tokenism, whereas you see a lot of stuff on the fringes is actually exploring actual kind of nitty gritty things, but they're doing it in a very, you know, positive and enlightening way. Hopefully, I think.
Yeah. I feel like that. Sorry, there's a tangent I could go on here, but it does unfortunately involve Twitter. Is that allowed?
We're in the last 20 minutes. I will allow it.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry. There was one thing, and I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter this week. But there was a woman who had neighbours. I'm not sure if you know where I'm going with this.
Oh God, the food thing.
Yeah, this food thing. Yeah. I like.
All right, go.
No, I'm just so. For those of you who don't know, a woman who had new neighbours who are adult men. She noticed that the adult men were constantly ordering pizzas, right? So being a neighbour and seeing that they're ordering all the time, they think they were using like DoorDash or whatever it was, decided to make them chili. Decided to make them some homemade chili. So took a picture of herself making the chili, and then went to hand it in, and has been monstered online by certain people on Twitter who have been saying everything from she's a white saviour, to she didn't ask for consent to give them food, to she's ableist, and there was another tangent of it, which was they also started to critique the chili itself.
That one's just an intimate position,
which is just, it's like, come on. But like, that to me, like, the good thing is that Twitter's dying, so it might actually be the last discourse on Twitter to wrap the whole thing up into a bundle and fire it into the abyss. But like, I was gobsmacked. I could not understand for the life of me, like, how, like, there's a whole raft of things you can say about this. The first one is, what the actual fuck? Like, how online do you have to be to consider the age-old, I'm talking like since the beginning, since the dawn of humanity, sharing food has been like, that's been like our thing. Apart from war, sharing food's been our thing. And like, I couldn't get over it. It was like, and people have flocked to the brilliant thing about like discourse is that there's people that get angry at the people who are originally angry, and then there's people who get angry about them, and it kind of zigzags up the ladder. But like, I could not understand the thought process, unless it's purely for clout, right? If it's purely for clout and you don't actually believe it, that's fine. I can actually almost say, well done, you've done a tremendous wind up. But to get to the point where you're saying, like, you know, another facet of this was that the woman was setting feminism back by cooking for the adult neighbours. The male neighbours, and it is like, so there's the language around consent, and I think when everyone hears me say consent, their mind goes to one thing, because that's really how it works it doesn't involve, it can involve food, but it doesn't tend to be about the sharing of food. It tends to be about whether people consent to sexual relations or not.
Consent with food is, I'm allergic to this thing, or I don't like this thing, please don't give it to me, and then the person continues to do it anyway because they don't respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
It's
this person does is not that.
Yeah. So. And also, like, I would say, like, this is why community also dies. Like, when people talk about community and versus, like, individualism, like, accepting that food is contributing to the community just as much as giving that food is contributing to the community. By accepting that food, you're saying thank you very much. You're establishing a relationship with the person. It does not matter if you then go and tip that food in the fucking bin. You've done the face-to-face acceptance of that food. This is how I see it, at least. It's like you can contribute to the community without having to then go through the whole, oh, well, what about me? You didn't ask if I want fed. By the way, the guys accepted the food and ate it and returned the dish. That's like, and even if they didn't eat it and they binned it and they returned the dish, that's still fine.
You know, I mean, I have opinions on it because I'm someone who has, I've got a mast cell disorder. For if you're somehow here and you don't know that Joy's medical kerfuffle, but I get people routinely who, in the beginning of my disorder, were very upset that I refused to eat their food. Because sharing food is like a love language to some people. It's a way of showing kindness and community and togetherness. And me being like, I'm sorry, I can't actually have that. And having to explain that, you know, oh, well, I only put the pepperoni on one side of the thing. So, and I'm like, that's not how food and allergy transference works. I can't have that. But some people get very angry when their kindness is rejected. And that's understandable because they've done a kind thing. But also the kind thing is to realize, oh, I didn't realize you had a medical disorder. No biggie. You know, it's the thought that counts. That would have been the way to handle that. That is not what these people are doing. They're just projecting to the extreme. And I honestly think a lot of it's got to do with outrage addiction. I think people are so fucking bored and they're not getting enough dopamine from their daily lives because God knows who is. They're looking for things to be upset about, to feel something.
Yeah. I mean, I think like
that's a big part of Twitter in itself.
Yeah. I mean, the thing wasn't, it spiraled like massively out of control to the point where like one of the lines against why the original criticism was bad was that the person who said that the woman didn't ask consent, she ended up being a landlord, which sparked a whole other fucking round of yeah, no, and like 100%, but it was like people who make kind of ridiculous, outrageous, like over the top attacks that are trying to instigate a pile on someone. If you're a landlord and you're doing that, like, don't go moralizing. Don't go saying that the woman's not a feminist. Don't go saying like all this stuff because people are then going to have a deep dive at you, and they're going to have they're going to look through all your fucking tweets
and they're like they will something because no one is perfect.
Yeah, and it's like I'm just saying it's like all of this could be entirely avoided. You could have just not made that comment, but it ended up spiraling to the point where one of the things that people haven't seen is that a lot of the original criticism that was directed towards the woman was gender criticals or transphobes assuming that the woman was trans. Now, the woman was a cis woman. This adds a whole other mental canopy to the online discourse. But what you ended up was you had a bunch of transphobes agreeing with the original criticism because a lot of them assumed that it was a dog pile on a trans person, which it wasn't. The internet, it was a great idea. It's just the worst fucking, it's just like, honestly,
to be a gatekeeper, and you're too young to remember this, but does anyone else in the chat remember when it was none of the normies were online because they were too computer illiterate to manage it? And it was actually, I mean, I won't say it was better, but it was different in a better way. Because it was, you did not have this level of, Facebook being on your phone was probably the worst thing because it gave everybody access to it. Then everybody realized they could shout their opinions.
Yeah.
I was a teenager. I was not even a teenager. I was 11 when we got dial-up, and the internet was a wild west of terrifying things. But it was also made up of mostly techie sav people, so you didn't have to deal with, Karen down the road telling you that you're being problematic because you baked food for someone. Therefore, you are unfeminist and also probably trans. I don't understand. I just saw Gaia online and had war flashbacks. Yeah, I remember Gaia online. But it, the level of outrage that people need to promote their own biases and bigotry is insane. And I hesitate to use that word because it comes off as very ableist, because people who are insane are more sane than this. This is a whole other level of unhinged. It is absolutely just, it's outrage addiction. It's looking for a reason to be angry about something and to propel your own outrage forward so that you can be the moral, upright, standing person. It's just, it is. I watched the whole thing on Twitter whilst watching Twitter burn down at the same time, and it was very. It felt surreal. It felt like this is such a non-argument.
It's like
it is such, like we literally, when we moved into our house, we went over and saw the neighbours and said hi, and it became a thing where we went to movie nights. We brought food, and then you find out, oh well, someone in the group has an allergy. So then you adjust your thing for that. You just adjust. You don't take it as, oh, I've been rejected because this person can't eat.
Personal insult.
And it's very it's hyper individual to the point of completely unhealthy.
Yeah.
If you were looking at how, well, I would be offended if someone did this. Okay, why? But also, you're not the same as everybody else. Not everyone has the same views. Not everyone wants to live in isolation.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It is genuinely. I noped out of that discourse pretty early on because I was like, I am not. Then it got to this is ableist, and I was like, I bet 99% of the people that are claiming this is a form of ableism don't have any idea about dietary disabilities. They're latching onto the word that they know will get a knee-jerk reaction to get a response.
I think the broadness of the attacks on this one woman was like a really textbook example of like trying to throw as much shit as possible and hoping that one bits of it stuck. Because in a way it did appeal to the whole spectrum of outrage people. There will be people who see that and see ableism and immediately jump in just as a gut reaction, because obviously there's a lot of strong feelings about that, and there is a lot of ableist shit out there. But like, I feel like the kind of broad appeal to, okay, let's get the fucking transphobes involved, let's get like that, and let's try and the original quote tweet ended up being an 80 tweet thread about this woman cooking fucking chili for her neighbour. It's like, how do you get to that? Is there a way, like, maybe, like, as I've kind of been saying, maybe Twitter dying is actually the best thing possible, because I've seen, like, people who I've, been pals with on Twitter, or people who I've seen as acquaintances on Twitter, like, they're actually treating websites like Mastodon as almost like a clean slate. Yeah. Like, people are being way more friendly and like introducing themselves to each other again. Like, they're not bogged down in the, oh, well, you're followed by this person who I fucking argued with once, therefore you're a prick. It's like all of that just
there's many
cleansed.
things about Twitter that I will be glad to see the back of, but I am genuinely worried about things like, Black Twitter's its own community. The disabled Twitter community is its own thing as well. And a lot of us have built survival networks through that. there was a lot of people in the early days of, again, mass cell research. A lot of us were just on Twitter because it was the most accessible way to reach the broadest audience possible, to be like, hey, is anyone else experiencing spontaneous anaphylaxis to this soap? And the doctor tells you it's anxiety. And a lot of us were going, yeah, actually that happened to me. And it was like, oh, cool, what is this? And then you had a doctor, chiming in saying it's mast cell disorder. But it is a good, it does have good purposes. The fact that some people use it for, to me, it is bad for my mental health a lot of the time, but it has been necessary for revolution and change. I mean, the fact that Elon Musk today brought Trump back onto Twitter tells you why he bought it.
Yeah.
The only good thing that can come of it is that he brought him back just in time for the website to collapse. But it's very... there are lots of parts of it that I will miss. And it was actually quite interesting, because the other night... you would have been offline, I think, but somebody was holding a live space where all these people were listening in, and there was like 20,000 people listening in. I grabbed the first half of it when Tumblr Twitter account was there, and they came onto the chat, and you heard the first thing they said was hello, and you were just like, that's Tumblr. Yeah. And then they kept asking questions and things, and then it progressed from there. And then somebody pointed out, well, a lot of the panelists are very white. Can we get some racial diversity up in here? They allowed one woman on who then was trying to point out people in the audience. But every time anyone tried to bring up anything serious, it was brought back to dick jokes and masturbation jokes. And like, it was very clear to them, oh yeah, this is so great. I can't wait for Twitter to collapse. Meanwhile, you have disabled activists like Imani who are going, this is the death of the lifeline for most of us, because our community was founded through this. And you had other people being like, yeah, when all the revolutions were happening after George Floyd, a lot of us coordinated through Twitter. You don't have that with Mastodon. You don't have it with Tumblr.
I mean, we've spoken about it from the reason why Twitter was public was that it was offering a public service to a degree. It was like when we've spoken about this before, when the local service, like the local emergency services failed during the Australian forest fires, Twitter was the resource. When things kicked off in Ukraine, people were glued to Twitter because that was how evacuations were being coordinated. There was lots of that. And to think that one man has been able to tank the fucking website in a smaller space of time than Liz Truss was Prime Minister, it's really quite
it's scary.
It's scary, but it's also just quite sad because, as you've said, it's going to be hard to move entire communities to another social platform. I mean, I'm gonna mention the charity stream. The charity stream that charity streams that I've done in the past, the big 24-hour ones, have been actual events on Twitter. That's how a lot of people learned about the stream in the first place. That's all the good comments and it's amazing to be on here. Twitter was good for the kind of fast commentary of the moment to moment bits of a charity stream. I can't do live updates on Tumblr in the same way, because then I end up with a Tumblr thread that's fucking miles long.
And it's also, I mean, the Twitter thing, I had people that had never ever heard of me because they'd seen the charity stream being such widely retweeted. I think I handed out 200 books over Twitter.
Yeah.
And it was you can't do that on Tumblr. And Tumblr is my main, that's my home. I'm the ghost in the code at this point. But it was, there are some vital things that will be missed for. And it really pisses me off that a rich boy with right-wing fantasy ideas about him being the savior of free speech, unless it's about him, has managed to destroy it. I mean, it was a bin fire before, but now it's like nuclear wasteland.
I mean, the one thing I will say to anyone who does want to jump onto Twitter at the moment, don't know why you'd want to do that, but at the moment the auto copyright service has failed, so people are uploading full length films in Twitter threads, and they're like using up the max amount of video time. So I think at the moment you can go onto Twitter and watch Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift in 3-minute segments over the course of like 95 tweets. If you really want to, but again,
it's just like the old internet days when you had to go into what was it called, Mega? It was the old how to stream things. You were watching 20-minute animes in like 5-segment things because that was the upload. Mega Video or something like that. But that it's like being on dial-up again for a lot of it. I've just been getting a lot of porn. Like I clicked on a lot of I have a lot of community tags for like the CDC and some other stuff, and there's just porn everywhere. And I'm like, I mean, it's not the porn I'd look for, but I was like, I
was going to say, I was like, what are the CDC branching into?
Exactly. I was like, that's different. But
yeah, I mean, it's gonna radically change how online spaces work, and I think. Like, to be fair, I think Tumblr's playing a blinder at the moment. I think they're doing really good on Twitter. If you go and have a look, if you have to visit Twitter at all, go and look at what Tumblr's been tweeting, because it is very funny. It's like they're almost...
had the hello cheater meme that everyone else has been posting after they were asked in the live space, how are you handling, what do you think about people coming back to, Tumblr? And then 20 seconds later, you had the welcome back cheater sign on the main page. I was like, that's funny, actually. Staff are allowed to be funny.
Yeah. They are doing good. Like they clearly... It's funny because I think it speaks to Tumblr as a website thriving on the chaos, but like they're thriving on the chaos of another social media's downfall, which I think is just amazing. Love it. Why are we talking about the Centre for CDC? Okay.
CDC.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Almost got us taken off of Spotify there.
It's like, oh dear. Right, but I think we can probably wrap up there and enter our last 10 minutes. So thanks very much for that, folks. I hope you enjoyed all of the various tangents. Like, I think we were really, really, at least partially, we're not really anything, partially cohesive in the first hour, and then it went into like a mixture of just geeky tangents for the second half, which is what you've all come to expect at this point. Thank you to everyone who's watched live. It's always good to kind of see and read your chats. But also thanks to everyone who downloaded last week's episode. That was actually our most downloaded episode to date, which is really cool because it means we're on the up. It only took us 21 episodes. But yeah, that was a massive jump.
Cowboys. If you want more cowboys, let us know.
Yeah, if it's solely cowboys you're after, then we'll need to really pivot and learn our shit. But yeah, well, we can do that. But that is all from me. Obviously, you can check it out on the podcast, folks. If you're in stream, if you download it on the RSS feeds. But you can also catch the actual live video on YouTube as well. We've got a YouTube archive where you can see our faces. Not sure if that interests anyone who's listening.
See my reaction to everything I was talking about.
Yeah, crucifix nail nipples. Here we go. But thanks very much, folks, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.